I must say it's very evident that all the individuals in this room must really, really care about the discussion that we're going to have here today. My guess is that there are a number of people who had intended to come here, went to another session that shall remain unnamed, and essentially found themselves caught in the room because, in essence, once the First Lady was going to be on her way, they were locking the doors for that session. So people basically had to stay there, or will have to stay there until the session is over. But we thank you all for being here, for joining us today for what we believe will be a very, very insightful and really tremendous conversation. And we're very, very happy to have you all here with us. Welcome to the 40th Annual Legislative Conference of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. I'm Marjorie Innocent, and I'm the Senior Director of Research and Programs at the Foundation. Prior to, and especially since Hurricane Katrina hit, as you all know, we have heard a number of stories of tragedy and despair, but also a lot about hope and resilience. During this conference, 5 years after Hurricane Katrina, followed of course by Rita, followed of course by the oil spill on the Gulf Coast, we wanted to bring together a panel of leaders who individually and collectively are making a real impact on the efforts to rebuild the area into a more equitable and a stronger Gulf region, including the city of New Orleans itself. And we believe that we have achieved just that with the panel that you see here before you today. We are really, really grateful to them for being here with us and for the remarkable contributions that they continue to make happen in the Gulf region. When Dr. Elsie Scott, our president and CEO, sent the word out about this panel, she heard very quickly from our first speaker, who asked her to allow her the opportunity to bring greetings at this event today. You all know her well, and we are very, very grateful to have her as a board member and a friend of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Everyone, please welcome CNN contributor and native New Orleanian, Ms. Donna Brazile.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. I called Dr. Scott and told her that I wanted to come and not only thank the panelists for their excellent work, their dedication, and of course, their own resiliency, but to just say a couple of brief words. 5 years ago, hurricanes, Katrina and Rita, changed our lives forever. None of us will ever forget what we witnessed, whether on the ground or on TV, the faces of those who were left stranded, struggling to be rescued, and of course, the faces of those who we knew, because of the timing of the storm, had no way to get out of harm's way in that period of time. It's been 5 years, and for 3 of the 5 years, I had the opportunity to serve as a member of the Louisiana Recovery Authority, working not only with then Governor Kathleen Babineau Blanco, former Mayor Ray Nagin, members of the Louisiana State Legislature, and of course, the federal government, Senator Landrieu. I can't say Senator Vitter was on the spot or on the scene. He had some other things in his black book to worry about. But I had an opportunity to work with so many players, including former President George W. Bush. Our mission was very simple, and that was to try to get the resources back to the state of Louisiana so that the people and their representatives could decide how best to rebuild, how best to recover. In my judgment, the recovery efforts have been mixed. I've seen a lot of progress, both with our schools, with our infrastructure. I'm glad to see some movement through the Obama administration in cutting FEMA's red tape. But clearly the road home money and some of the projects that are still ongoing, the levee reconstruction, remain some concerns that I continue to experience and have my own self. In the last few months, I've been back home not to work with any of the lawmakers or the legislature, but to see my own family through what I call a milestone in their lives. 80% of my family have been able to return back to the Crescent City area. Those who have decided to stay out have decided to remain in South Carolina, Baton Rouge, or other places simply because they still don't have the wherewithal to get back, or they found other things to enjoy in other places across the country. But for those who are back home, back in the region or back in the city itself, they still find themselves with dealing with issues, schools, and of course the blight and some of the problems that you have from just going back and being the first person to resettle and just trying to get the neighborhood and the community back together. But this tragedy has showed us and showed me personally that what's more important, the most important thing is that we try to bring people together, that we continue to raise some of the concerns that we raised some 5 years ago about the ongoing poverty in the area and also the imbalance when it comes to ensuring that all neighborhoods are treated equally as they begin to rebuild. One sister who I'm going home this weekend to help, I've tried to be there, not only to gut the homes back 5 years ago, and that was a nasty process. Try removing seafood after it's been sitting for 3 or 4 weeks. It is not a pleasant experience. But one of my sisters is returning to New Orleans East. And I can tell you that it is going to be tough, not only because all the schools are not back and she still has a young child in elementary school, but also the grocery stores and the other aspects of community life are still in the process of being rebuilt or restored. She is, for me, a very special sibling, and I want to go back to help her with her moving process because I know it's been 5 hard years, and the road home money, I've learned firsthand just with her own process of getting certificates to elevate the home, to getting new wiring, to getting new construction. It has been an ordeal, and I can keep you here for hours telling you the whole story. But the good news is that President Obama returned to our region. He is deeply committed in our ongoing recovery efforts, and he is working with our congressional delegation and, of course, the local officials to ensure that resources are put in place to restore our marshlands and our coastline. And I know that several of my panelists will also share some of this information. So I just want to say in closing this is my 8th year at Georgetown, and my classes are held in the evening time from 3 until 7 o'clock, and so I have to get over back to Georgetown. But I just want to say, working with so many people in this room and others, that we have learned a lot. We've come very, very far, but we are still not there yet. And I hope that you redouble your efforts, that you find the time after today's session to continue to tell our story, continue to tell the rebuilding and the recovery story, and to continue to help us in our ongoing efforts to ensure that we are back safer and stronger and prepared for whatever might happen next. And I say that because we need to remind BP that while they continue to run those commercials that they will make it right, it's still not right when we know that so many of our folks are unemployed, are not able to get back to work, and that Gulf is not restored to health. So with that, I'll turn it over to the panelists to get them introduced, and I'll spend a couple minutes just to get a little bit of what I call the lingo so I can tweet. You know I got to tweet. And put something on Facebook, and hopefully I'll follow up with everyone when I return on Saturday from the Gulf Coast. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donna. Really appreciate it. And now I'm very, very pleased to introduce to you our moderator for today's session, sitting 2 over from me, Mr. Adrian Wilson, who is the National Director of the Equity and Inclusion Campaign. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Marjorie. We are grateful to you and the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation for creating this space for our voices and our narratives of hope, resilience, and renewal to be heard and to inform the change that is needed in America. As Marjorie shared, my name is Adrian Wilson. I serve as the National Director of the Equity and Inclusion Campaign. The campaign is committed to transforming the South by ensuring that all voices, grassroots voices in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, are heard and valued in the public policy space in America, and not just the voices of the well-off and the well-connected. I must tell you, I just want to take a brief moment and say thank you to our sister Donna Brazile. We are proud that you are from the Gulf Coast and from New Orleans. As many of you know, she's been a champion for what is just and what is right in this recovery process. I can't even begin to tell you how humbled I am to serve as moderator for this panel of other champions for what is just and what is right. We have many heroes and sheroes assembled for you today from across the Gulf Coast and from New Orleans. They will share their personal journeys and teach us some important lessons along the way. I tell you, as we listen to this wonderful wisdom assembled here, our collective goal is to deepen our understanding of what happened or what has happened 5 years since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. But not only that, but also to understand how the latest disaster impacting the Gulf Coast with the BP oil spill is affecting Gulf Coast communities. The common narrative of our panelists, and may I add countless others across the Gulf Coast, is that these folk didn't wait for government to act, but they acted. They are on the front lines rebuilding lives and rebuilding communities every day. At the end of this session, I hope that we have answered or will be closer to answering two important questions. What policy changes are needed in the Gulf region to promote sustainable communities and business development, quality education, and health care, as well as environmental justice for all residents? And how do these recommendations inform a social and economic agenda to end poverty? With that, let me take a couple of moments and introduce our panelists. And I will be very brief, and I encourage the panelists, as they share with you, to fill in any gaps about their narrative, about their individual journey that they wish. And I will simply go in alphabetical order, and I will ask that when I call your name, just acknowledge yourself to our community that's gathered here. First is Alice Craft Kearney. Alice is a native of New Orleans and has deep ties to the Lower Ninth Ward. She graduated with honors from Southern University with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from the LSU School of Nursing. She is a 20-year veteran of the state's charity hospital system in Louisiana. Before Katrina, she served on a social justice team, which met monthly and advised former Mayor Ray Nagin. Working with other community members in the Lower Ninth Ward, she formed the Lower Ninth Ward Health Clinic, and she is presently the executive director of that health clinic. After Katrina, and this is, again, that narrative that we need to keep repeating in terms of how far we have come. After Katrina, she was temporarily relocated to New Mexico, then to Houma, Louisiana, before returning to New Orleans in February 2006. She lived in a FEMA trailer in the Lower Ninth Ward until June 2007, while overseeing renovations to the newly established health clinic. She now lives in eastern New Orleans with her son. Thank you, Alice, for joining us. Secondly, let me introduce Tim Dugan. Tim Dugan is with the Make It Right Foundation and has been with the Make It Right Foundation for over 2 years. As many of you know, the Make It Right Foundation was formed by actor Brad Pitt, and with the goal of building 150 affordable, green, high-design homes in New Orleans' Lower Ninth Ward. To date, the team there is over 33 full-time employees. Through the work of the Make It Right Board of Directors, they have raised more than $36 million from 31,000 donors. They've completed 40 homes to date. So Tim, we are excited that you're here with us to share the journey of the Make It Right Foundation. Also, we have Mr. Byron Uncolade. He is a native of East Point Lahash, Louisiana, which is a small fishing village in Plaquemines Parish. He engages in harvesting seafood, oysters, and shrimp, as well as transporting seafood along the Gulf Coast states. He, is serving in many capacities. I'll just surface a couple for you. He is constable for the Plaquemines Parish 3rd Ward. He is the president of the Louisiana Oystermen Association and the South Plaquemines United Fisheries Cooperative. And most proudly, as his bio reads, most proudly, a lifetime member of the Wolfhound Pack 27th Infantry Regiment Historical Society. Welcome, Byron. Let me also introduce Candace Frazier. Candace Frazier received, and I know she acknowledged herself. Thank you, Candace. Candace Frazier received her bachelor's degree in theology from Georgetown University. After college, she returned to her home state of Louisiana and worked with the Louisiana's Board of Regents, looking at how to recruit quality candidates for alternative teacher certification programs. During that time, she created the Teach Northeast program at the University of Louisiana at Monroe, Teach GSU program at Grambling State University. In 2008, Candace joined the New Schools for New Orleans team as the Director of Selection, Recruitment and Selection. And she now serves as the Human Capital Director for that organization. Welcome, Candace. Charlotte Jackson serves as the Deputy Director of the Lower Ninth Ward Neighborhood Empowerment Network Association, whose mission is to play a vital role in the neighborhood's redevelopment. As Deputy Director, Charlotte is responsible for the implementation and development of the strategic plan and oversight of grant funds. She has committed 20 years of service to community needs and housing, as well as community and economic development. She received a bachelor's degree in business administration from Loyola University and serves, again, in numerous capacities in the community. So welcome, Charlotte. Let me finally, but not least, introduce to you Jerome Ringo. Jerome became national president of the Apollo Alliance in 2005, working as a dedicated champion of environmental justice and a local voice for clean energy. I will tell you that he spent 20 years in Louisiana's petrochemical industry, and as I read here, as Jerome began observing the negative impact of the petrochemical industry's pollution on poor, minority communities, he began to organize community environmental justice groups. In 1996, Jerome was elected to serve on the National Wildlife Federation Board of Directors. In 2005, he became chair of the board, making him the first African American to head a major conservation organization. Jerome appeared in the award-winning documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. He also co-authored Diversity and the Future of the U.S. Environmental Movement in 2007, and the Green Festival Reader in 2008. Jerome lives in Lake Charles, Louisiana, with his wife, and they have 4 children. Let's welcome our panelists. To begin this conversation, this dialogue, I want to ask the panelists several questions, and then have them engage in a response for around 5 minutes or so. And let me also commit to you that we will leave plenty of time for each of you to engage the panelists in this learning conversation. So let me turn first to Charlotte. Charlotte, we know that after Katrina, communities have organized and they are owning outcomes for themselves. in ways they never have before. Can you describe the work of the Neighborhood Empowerment Network Association to revitalize the Lower Ninth Ward? And as you answer, surface for us the strategies you have employed and what lessons you have learned that have impacted your efforts.
Care that we need. Most of all, mental health needs. We found that there has been a tremendous increase in suicides and suicide attempts. I can tell you from my own personal experience, most recently my great-niece tried to commit suicide. So if you don't have someone in your family, you probably know someone in your family who is suffering from some type of mental illness, which is usually depression, post-traumatic stress, or anxiety. And thirdly, what we want to do is we want to lock arms with other entities that could help to support us. Currently, we're working with Dillard University and LSU with the National Institute of Health grant.
Okay, thank you. I really love the way you framed your remarks, talking about what existed and what the narrative was even before Katrina devastated our beautiful city, New Orleans, and the Gulf Coast, especially surfacing that we had a complete inadequate mental health structure even before Katrina. So thank you for those remarks. Tim, let's bring you into the conversation because many across the country have been watching Brad Pitt and his work with the Make It Right Foundation. Simply share with us, what is the strategy for the Make It Right Foundation in the Lower Ninth Ward? And do you have a vision for taking what you're doing to scale across New Orleans, across the Gulf Coast, across America?
The background of Make It Right is intended to bring homeowners home and couple that approach with driving change in the sustainable design world, because sustainable design should be more than just for the rich. Low-income neighborhoods or even moderate and middle-income neighborhoods would actually have the biggest impact on sustainable design, on sustainable homes, with energy efficiency, with utility bills, with green jobs, with workforce development, with all of those components. So our organization came together with the idea of, we walked in the neighborhood 2 years after Katrina and saw nothing, and we saw very little redevelopment, and we wanted to see if partners could come together to help drive a disaster into an opportunity, and to create a neighborhood that's focused on the idea of a triple bottom line, one that is economically sustainable, one that is socially sustainable, and one that's environmentally sustainable. And through that process, we are currently built approximately 52 homes for homeowners that lived in that same spot before Katrina. We have 30 plus homes currently under construction, and we have a goal of 150. That being said, when we started the project, the community was very clear. We want to focus on homeowners and having them return. So it's very difficult there's a lot of things that need help in New Orleans. It's very difficult to help in every avenue of the recovery process. But at the same time, it has given us an opportunity to really focus on sustainable redevelopment in the community. That being said, we are trying to create a neighborhood that it will accept another Hurricane Katrina. We are trying to drive change in the sense that if you're going to be told by the federal government or your local government to build in certain areas and build in certain environments, you have to do it sustainably. They have to be able to withstand floods. They have to be able to be energy efficient. They have to be able to handle all of the conditions that is placed on the New Orleans landscape. Otherwise, it's not a sustainable recovery. And so, through this process, we have developed a model that we think is replicable, that we think can be taken to other areas across the country. We think that climate change is real and rising sea levels are real. And if you're going to suggest that people will be put in harm's way and something as personal as their home, then it should be built in a much more sustainable manner. And it can be done affordably. Our biggest impact is not green and being a tree hugger. Our biggest impact is our homeowners have utility bills in the range of $35 to $45 a month. That is the most sustainable component of green building that we have seen come out of this process and this project. And we don't really know what the next steps are. We are actively involved in a project, an affordable housing project that would incorporate mixed use, disabled veterans, affordable housing. But at the same time, we have a commitment, and we're not even halfway there yet. We have a commitment of 150 sustainable houses that we want to make affordable and market rate by the end of the project, and we think we're very close to accomplishing that. And that's not just a simple feat. That's sustainable.
Yes, thank you for that. And I love the way you opened by saying that from the very beginning, the goal was to have homeowners in the lower ninth ward return. And we know 5 years later that if that had been the case for many governmental infrastructures, that maybe we would have had, or maybe right now we would have more of the people that were displaced as a result of Katrina that want to return to New Orleans. Maybe they will be back there now. So thank you for your work and for your efforts. Candace, I want to bring you into the conversation. We know our communities, our children, and as one of my mentors, Marion Wright Edelman, would say, our children don't come in pieces. They don't need an ear of health care and a nose of affordable housing, but we must look comprehensively at the whole child. And we know that we can't talk about strengthening our communities. We can't talk about a real, true rebuilding process if we don't talk about education. And so my question to you is, first describe the education landscape from your view that exists right now in New Orleans 5 years after Katrina. And then take a forward look 5 years out from here and kind of describe for me what you believe we will see.
Thank you. I think Charlotte was extremely right when she said that first you have to build the schools before you'll be able to, people will think about returning home. And that was kind of where my organization came from. We started right after the storm in April of '06 with the mission that I think everyone in this room can identify with, is that we just want a school system where we can say that every child has an opportunity to go to a great public school. And it's an open enrollment school, it's not selective, and they're not having to pay money to go to a private school. And so that's the reason that we all wake up every day and come do the work that we do at Musicals for New Orleans, try to work. And it was because of looking where we came from that unfortunately Louisiana has always been at the bottom of the list when it comes to providing an excellent education for our students. And then even more unfortunately, New Orleans was providing a very poor service to our students prior to Katrina, where it was often said that it could be in competition for being one of the worst school systems in the country. And we have a long way to go to get away from that reality that we had, but we've come a long way now, where in statistics that just came out,
New Orleans as a district and the city as a whole is tripling its performance compared to the growth that the state is receiving. And these are all things that have happened since Katrina. Prior to 2005, the city was kind of stagnant in its results and being able to serve our students. But we've been able to put a system in place where there are great successes that are happening. And we believe that there are three different pieces to the equation to be able to make that happen. You have to make sure that you're having exceptional human capital, meaning you've got great teachers that are in every classroom, you've got great school leaders that are leading those schools. With the human capital, you also have to have a reform environment where the politics are supporting what's happening. So you have to have a State Department of Ed that's backing you up. You have to have a Board of Elementary and Secondary Education that has that vision. And you have to have the community around you, making sure that you are listening to their needs and giving them that. And you also have to have high-performing schools. And with that, we believe that we can close the achievement gap that currently exists across our nation. So that's where we are right now, but we feel like we've got those people coming into the city and people who are already there that are fighting to make sure their students get a good education. We luckily have had a lot of young people coming in to teach for America and the new teacher projects program to give us that influx of human capital. We've got school leaders in the leading schools like Martin Luther King, that Charlotte mentioned, that are being recognized across the nation. We come from a place where we were always seen as being one of the worst school districts, and now we're getting praise from President Obama and Secretary of Ed, Arlene Duncan, and being put up as a model. But the one thing that we have to realize is that it's not enough for us to be better than we were. I work with a colleague who said this on some national panel, is now being quoted constantly about it, but it's not okay to just suck less. We can't suck less than we were before. We can't suck less than we were in 2007, 2008. We really are on a mission to make sure that we're giving our kids the education they deserve so they can go to college and have a real opportunity in life. And we've got the things in place. We've got the human capital. We've got the supportive reform politics. We've got great schools, but we have to continue this work if we're going to be able to really say that we are closing that achievement gap. And so that's what continues our work every day. That's why we have, in 5 years, I don't think we'll still be there, but I think we have to continue on the path that we're on. We have to also take up and realize that it's going to cause that you're going to maybe ruffle a few feathers. One thing that we're going to be doing a lot of work in the next coming years is that right after Katrina, we had a lot of schools open, charter schools and traditional schools that, if you look at the results of where we are right now, they're not serving the students the way they should be, and we can't allow ourselves to replicate what we had prior to Katrina. So we're going to have some tough conversations about schools that need to be closed, and that's going to be, it's going to cause perhaps some hurt feelings, because there's a lot tied to schools when you're thinking about the communities in New Orleans, but you also have to keep in mind that it's about the students, and that's the reason that everyone should be involved in education. We want to make sure that we're giving them the best thing possible and that it's not just something less that looks better than it did yesterday, but we really are moving towards that vision of where we want to see ourselves in 5-10 years when we can continue to be a school district that is being applauded by our president and by our federal DOE as a model for the nation.
Okay, thank you. You said something really powerful, and I know we'll have time to come back to it, but as we reform, how do we wisely engage community in that process? I would love, in a moment, we're gonna come back to you and we'll kind of unpack that a bit, because I would love to understand your perspective on that. I want to shift the conversation just a tad bit and turn to Byron. Let me add that he is recovering from a very serious cold, and he was determined to be here with us, and we're excited that he made it and that he's here. Thank you so much, Byron. Let's walk through your journey, Byron, in terms of your livelihood, how you started rebuilding after Katrina, and now you have the BP oil spill. In a very direct way, what steps did you take to rebuild your business after Katrina And now, what has been the impact of the BP oil disaster?
First of all, I do want to apologize for this sentence. But, you know, our nightmares came not from Katrina. Katrina was a horrible storm. It was God's will, Mother Nature, whatever. We could deal with that. You know, there's a proverb that goes around on I in True Waters, and when you guys in New Orleans have heard it, you know, we got hit by Katrina and rolled over our road home. And that can't be, you know, no true. We have went through the same problems in New Orleans. We saw both sides of the highways. We had to move ourselves. FEMA did not move its boats. They did not give the people that suffered the damages the funds. That's one of the reasons why it's so important for me to be here. And I've heard the whole panel, most panels talk about sustainability. We're talking about comprehensive plans. We can't have none of those things unless we force our state administration to come up with the policies that will give us these things. In our fishing industry, you know, Katrina didn't hurt us as much as the politics played it out to be. The funds that came down from the federal government that we were denied, that went into the hands of the rich and the wealthy, those that didn't need it, didn't suffer the damages. That's what hurt us. Because our congressional people wanted the impression the money was there, it was sent to you, but with no oversight. So, and I know, well, the young lady's not here today, she can remember me in the early days and after Katrina, when those federal funds was being turned over to the LRA. I spoke before Dr. Francis, who was the chairman of the LRA, and it was a matter concerning $50 million for the strategic right money. No small fishermen had that money. The boats that we move in our community, I've been to pull my trucks off the highway and move them ourselves because FEMA would not move them without Corps of Engineers, nor would Shaw allow their equipment to be exposed. These are documented facts. And as we move forward, and I don't want to spend too much time on the past, as we move forward, we cannot move forward unless our state government gives us the policies that would allow us to have sustainability, comprehensive plans. We are faced with coastal erosion, freshwater diversion systems that have basically destroyed our seafood industry. So we cannot move forward unless we have these policies. When we look at the way the state have administered oyster beds, and most of the fishermen do not have quality oyster beds to sustain themselves. So how can we move forward? We could go back to where we were, going down that road that's still costing you, the public, more money for seafood. Your businesses are unstable because you don't know when you're going to get it, if you're going to get it, because the supply is short. And the sad thing is, you know, I love Louisiana. I love being on the islands. There's nowhere in the world I can be. But I know the potential that what Louisiana can be. And we have to demand that Louisiana come up with policies that we're going to need to create that sustainability. And that's why I'm here, and I'm going to be fighting. I can go on and on, but I'm not going to do that. So, but anyway, thank y'all, and I really appreciate y'all for coming out and hearing me. And I apologize for my sickness. I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Byron. And you have lifted up what is really a common theme throughout the Gulf Coast in terms of, in all of its power, the federal government said, here are the remedies. Here are the dollars for the solutions that state Louisiana, state Mississippi, state Alabama, you want to implement. And what we have continuously heard is the narrative that Byron just shared with you, is that the dollars did not hit the ground in the ways that they needed to affect the change and the recovery that was important. And so as we continue to listen to all these wonderful lessons, we must lift up some of the core themes. And one is, as we move forward, how do we work with our federal partners at the grassroots level? And the federal partners understanding they must hear from the grassroots level in fashioning, I would say, prescriptions, or being more prescriptive with dollars that come down to the states. Jerome, I am really, really eager to bring you into this conversation because of your journey and the wonderful perspective that you will fill this space with. Clearly, with the obvious challenges of Katrina and the BP oil spill, what other unseen issues might you consider critical for the people of the Gulf Coast? And that is, again, looking at today and looking at the future.
Thank you very much. And first, I want to acknowledge several other Louisianians that are here. Laverne, thank you for being here, representing Senator Mary Landrieu and her commitment to coastal restoration and fixing what has been broken in Louisiana. My dear friend Mitch Bush, who's a businessman in Louisiana, has been for many years and is creating jobs in minority communities along that Gulf Coast. And of course, I must recognize my homeboy, my dear friend, and a champion in this organization, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, the past president of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, Mr. Weldon Rougeau from Lake Charles, Louisiana, who is now consulting on various issues. We have been made aware through this panel of a number of key issues and concerns and potential solutions with respect to the events of 2005, that of Hurricane Katrina, which was followed by Hurricane Rita, this was followed by Hurricane Gustav, which was followed by Hurricane Ike, which was followed by Hurricane Wilma. We have also been educated and made aware of the challenges of the education system in Louisiana, or the lack of in the past, but the great work that's being done to resolve those education problems and recognizing that education plays such a critical role in fixing what has been broken. We have been educated on the plight of the health system in our state as Charity Hospital was shut down greatest as a result of that issue. And as well, we've been made aware and have heard from the Austrian, those people that are on the ground who are daily out there harvesting, or trying to harvest, and have been affected in such a way by the oil spill of British Petroleum that has potentially killed for generations many of the species and habitats that are so critical to the economy of Louisiana. But there are many other challenges that we face, and of course I do want to recognize Tim and the great work that his group is doing in Lower Ninth Ward building homes and beyond, and of course this young lady is doing the same thing. But we're faced with challenges that go even far beyond the obvious. Challenges that some of us are very aware of and some of us are not, but they do exist. Surely we have studied, and just a few nights ago I had a chance to view Spike Lee's documentary on the Hurricane Katrina. So we know what happened during Katrina. And of course, many experts or many people believe or hope that it does not ever happen again. Well, get ready. We are dealing with the realities that we are now experiencing or have experienced the 10 hottest years in recorded history. Since 2001, that 2005 was the hottest year in recorded history, and that is expected that the summer of 2010 will break the record of 2005. We have experienced last year the coldest winter in recorded history, and climatologists expect that the winter of 2011 will be colder than winter last year. The realities are is that we are facing the impacts of climate change. Climate change that is now melting the ice cap of Kilimanjaro for the first time in 10,000 years. Climate change that is melting the permafrost in Alaska, and tribes like the Gwich'in in northern Alaska, where I spent a week, are now moving their tribes for the first time in hundreds of years because of a melting permafrost. Challenges of a diminishing coast of Louisiana, where we still continue to lose an acre of land every 42 minutes to erosion. Now you add those challenges to Katrina and BP, but it goes even greater than that. We still face an unemployment rate of 9.5%. We are seeing American jobs being exported while we continue to import 70% of our fossil fuel energy from many countries who hate us. They sell their oil to us, and they use the money to support terrorism against us. But we also face the realities that there are single mothers in New Orleans and South Louisiana and Mississippi, Alabama, and the coast of Florida that daily must stand at that gas pump and make a decision as to whether they purchase a gallon of gas or a gallon of milk, because the energy prices are unaffordable. We face a time when there is no level playing field with respect to energy. Poor people still spend more on energy than the rich. 50% of the income of poor people is spent on energy. Rich folks build energy-efficient homes. They turn their air conditioners on for 1 hour, the house is cool, they shut it down, and the house is cool for the rest of the day. We're over at Maman's house across the track. She has no insulation in the attic, she has no double insulated glass, and there are cracks in the wall, so therefore she runs her air conditioner all day to stay cool in the blistering heat of Louisiana. And then we have the realities of we're driving cars in our community that are secondhand, that are not energy efficient. And I'm yet to see 2 lines at a gas pump, one for the rich and one for the poor. And we in America, those of us that are the poor, still cannot afford to buy a Prius. So therefore, the challenges that we face with Katrina and BP and all of the hurricanes, there are many, many more challenges with respect to a spiraling economy, a diminishing coastline, the challenges of climate change, and policies that are not in place to protect us. So what do? How do we get those people involved that in the past have not been involved? How do we get those people involved who have focused more on next month's rent than the hurricanes that are destined to tear our shores up once again? We are faced with the elements of the perfect storm. We're rebuilding New Orleans, and I compliment you all that are rebuilding with hurricane-proof homes, and we've rebuilt the levees, some at the same standards that they were prior to Katrina, and much of which they say will hold the next storm. Well, we're not very well prepared for that next one, and the next one will come. The temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico were about 86 degrees Fahrenheit at the time of Katrina, and as we well know, it is the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico that fuel the intensity of the storms. The water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico now are averaging above 90 degrees. So we can be prepared for a more intense storm once they reach the Gulf of Mexico, and as I've often said, once those storms really reach the Gulf and hit that warm water, it's like adding steroids to the storm. So we've now must be prepared as we try to recover from the past, but prepare for a future that looks quite bleak. And still at a time when we do not have policies in place, we still have American people who are debating over whether a moratorium is proper or not in an effort to guarantee that we have safe and efficient methods in drilling for our oil. We still have folks that are proclaiming and chanting drill, baby, drill, at a time when we need to stop being so one-dimensional with respect to our energy and diversify our energy portfolio. We've got just as much energy growing on top of the ground as there is under the ground. Sunlight is free. Wind is free. And I'm not advocating that we should totally eliminate or wean ourselves completely from oil and gas, because that is critical to the economy of Louisiana. But we become one-dimensional. Imagine if on the day that Katrina hit in 2005, when 33% of our domestic oil supply was shut down because every oil rig in the Gulf was shut down. Imagine if on that same day, Hugo Chavez in Venezuela would have said, close the valve. Imagine if on that same day, the Saudi Arabians and the Iraqis and the Iranians and the West Africans and the Russians would have said, close the valve. America would have been brought to its knees. So we've got to diversify our energy portfolio. And we've got to engage people from every level of the economic ladder to be a part of the solution, whether it be core reform or working with groups like the National Wildlife Federation as it attempts to restore our coastline. We've got to engage the church, the education systems. We've got to engage community groups, whether it's labor organizations or conservation organizations, whether it's government or non-governmental organizations. We have to have a full engagement to build a coalition that is going to deal with these issues on every level. It is critically important, as I am so pleased that this caucus decided to address this issue beyond Katrina, beyond BP. How do we fix proactively what has been broken but prevent those issues from affecting us in such a catastrophic way in the future? That decision lies in the hands of the policymakers, but it also lies in the hands of each and every one of us in this room. That we not just be a part of the problem, but we collectively be a part of the solution. And I challenge each and every one of you to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome, for those really, really powerful remarks. And thank you for the call to action. Very, very important. I just want to share with you that during the 5th anniversary weekend of Hurricane Katrina, the Equity and Inclusion Campaign partnered with Katrina Rebirth to host, as folk called it, a reunion of the folk that lived, were trapped in the largest FEMA trailer community after Hurricane Katrina in Baker, Louisiana, the Renaissance Village. And it was a powerful gathering because people in the midst of that pain and hardship were able to form community and lift up the power of the human spirit. During that gathering, I made a very obvious statement. I said, you know, America failed New Orleans. America failed the people of the Gulf Coast. Very obvious statement. Based on what we've heard from this panelist, we also know that before the waters of Katrina washed onto our shores along the Gulf Coast, we were already drowning in extreme poverty. We were already drowning in poor educational outcomes, poor health outcomes. We were destroying our wetlands. We were destroying our environment. And so now I want to shift the conversation in a very real way and challenge our panelists with this question. As we sit here today, 5 years after Katrina, have things changed for low wealth, low income, poor communities of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast? And as you answer, if you say yes, please let us know why. If you say no, then surface for us what policy changes are needed in the Gulf region to promote the kind of communities, business development, quality education, health outcomes, the environmental justice piece that we need for the Gulf Coast, not just for the Gulf Coast, but for America. And so I'm just going to let anyone who feels moved jump in. and then I hope to hear from all of the panelists. Tim or Alex?
I want to just echo what our president said. One lady said, before Katrina, I had nothing. After Katrina, I had less than nothing. And many of the folk in New Orleans are finding themselves in that position where they have less than nothing. What I see as some type of policy change is a poverty eradication program. And because I'm not a policy maker, I don't know what it would be, but I can tell you what it should look like. It should be wraparound services for those folks who are most entrenched in poverty. It would include education, and education does not push out our students. African American males are leaving the education, the school system in large numbers because they're being pushed out. Charter schools are great, but they're making our charter schools very, very competitive. And when they do that, many of the kids who do not comply with the rules are pushed out. They're given a choice. Well, we're not going to expel you, but we'll give you the option to leave. So this is a grave concern to us. And those schools wound up in what we call our Orleans Parish schools, because then they don't have a choice. They have to accept the students. But we do have different types of charter schools, one that are open enrollment and some that are not. Secondly, when we talk about education, we need to make sure that there are services to assess for special needs. In New Orleans, there are not nearly enough people, professionals there to assess our kids who are having problems. And it's been documented. Thirdly, I would like to see that we continue to use healthcare as far as making sure that all of our communities are healthy. You cannot self-actualize if you're sick. That's been one of the problems that we've been having, both physical and mental illness. And thirdly, I believe that there needs to be some type of services for those who do not want to go to college. There are large numbers of kids who don't want to go to college. However, what we've seen in state government is there's been a reduction in trade schools. There are many trades that offer excellent salaries, but we're not training our kids for those jobs. So as a result, if you don't want to go to college, the option to go to a trade school isn't always very readily available. And those are just some of the things that I would say would help to eradicate poverty.
The policies are so critical. I think that the answer to many of the challenges we're facing, whether education, healthcare, environmental issues, what have you, is jobs, jobs, jobs. If we create jobs in Louisiana, our education systems, many of our school systems are funded by property taxes. The people are losing their homes and they're not paying property taxes, so therefore we don't have the funds to support the schools. The other thing is that people in our state are simply out of work. So they're concentrating more on paying next month's rent than getting involved in conservation, environmental issues, and what have you. So that removes them as well. If we invest in alternative energy, economic stimulation to stimulate manufacturing, then we can create jobs within our state. But we first need the policies. Louisiana needs to have a renewable portfolio standard that's going to require that a certain percentage of all the energy produced in Louisiana be alternative energy. 31 states have passed renewable portfolio standards. I was very involved with Governor Rendell in Pennsylvania as they developed the 19% portfolio standard that required that 19% of all energy produced in that state be alternative means. A company called Gamesa in Spain packed up their wind turbine operation and moved it to Pennsylvania. Why? Because under the standard, there are tax breaks and incentives. So they moved their operation to Pennsylvania and created 1,000 jobs the first day they arrived. We need to invest in green jobs. But we've got to invest in training on all levels. We've got to train people on entry-level positions so Shaniqua can have a job, so June can have a job, but also those people that are in business in Louisiana and businesses throughout the Gulf Coast can invest and receive a return on their investment. Right now, we're paying incentives to oil and gas companies. I don't have a problem with incentives being paid to oil and gas, but what I believe we need to shift that process to where we pay incentives to oil and gas companies to invest in alternative energy. ExxonMobil made a $40 billion profit, which was the largest profit of any corporation in history. That equates to about $1,200 a second. But yet the average person who wants to open a grocery store in Lower Ninth Ward can't get a tax break on incentive. So therefore, we need to redirect the incentive program to where it benefits people on all levels of the economic ladder, but it promotes investment in alternative energy that will create green jobs, get people off the street, support education, support health care, and improve the quality of life of citizens throughout Louisiana and the entire Gulf Coast.
Thank you. Louisiana, of course, once we get those policies, there are a lot of things that we can do here. Of course, I thank the president. He did work with our parish president. We get these barrier islands now put back in. And of course, our Senator Lambert always been on the forefront of this issue, trying to get our equal share of the offshore oil revenues. And of course, you heard the gentleman say when Katrina came, 33% of the oil just got stopped. But when you look at our portion of the revenue that we get off this, it's insulting. It really is. And the citizens of Louisiana have been upset over this for many years. So, but we could do something with that money instead of coming to the federal government all the time and say, bail us out, bail us out. That would have a revenue source that would be able to do the things to sustain us. But, of course, we need to make sure those policies. That's why it's important. And I'm going to ask Congress for oversight. We started when it came down for Katrina. I still have a young lady with a handicapped husband living in the leaky FEMA trail, and being told she made too much money to get rolled home when she's a prison guard. Could you believe this? And then the Corps of Engineers moved her trailer and took our land to put on the levee where it was busted. First they told our trailer wasn't back where it was. We got to stop all that craziness. We have to have a channel when people are suffering and being treated like that. We have to stop that immediately. Somebody, whether it's a local official or whatever, somebody should have the authority to move in there and say, I'm going to stop this right now. And that's one of our biggest problems. We seem hopeless to correct our wrong. It goes on too long, and then by the time it did stop, it costs us 20 times more to correct it. We have to be smart now. And with our seafood industry, I know we've often heard that the seafood industry versus the oil industry. It's one of the biggest jokes I've ever heard. We've been working together down here in Louisiana for hundreds of years. I broke down on the water, had the oil industry boats towed me in, they broke down. We all sit down there and laugh and joke at night on the platforms, on the areas. Our problem is not the oil industry, it's the policies, what goes on down there. When we talking about coastal erosion, we're talking about the oyster releasing right now. I've lost 99% of my oyster beds are dead. So how can I go forward if the state is going to say, okay, I'm going to give this group some oyster beds on the west bank of the river, but I'm not going to give those on the east bank of the river, who suffered the damages. So how can I go forward? I can't keep investing in something that a turn of a valve tomorrow, I could put $100,000 into shells and stuff to produce oysters, and then somebody decide in the state, they're just going to open the valves again. You can't set people up to fail. So, and that's what we need down there. And of course, you know, it's going to be a lot of fights because those who've been profiting and you know, like it the way it is, I ain't got to worry, got to just enjoy the benefits. You know, they're going to fight hard. And a lot of times, you know, it's to your own good to allow these policies and changes to take place. We are running a wildlife and fishery industry, a seafood industry, and wildlife based on laws that were implemented 100 years ago. Coastal erosion, all of this, freshwater diversion, our whole ecosystem has changed. So the promises that we were working on for the last 100 years are not going to work going forward. So I think.
Before Candace and others jump in, I want to say we're moving into very soon a section where you all can engage the panel. And so start thinking about the questions you will have for our panel. Candace?
Yeah, I'll keep it quick because I definitely want to hear from you all. But to keep in mind your question of are things better, I wish it were a simple yes or no. I would say that if you look at where we came from, yes, we've made progress. And that, I mean, I think the data will show that to you, so I'm not going to sit here and tell the statistics. But I really want to say yes because of the stories that I hear from families and from their parents and from the students. The kids are now saying, yes, I feel like I've got a good chance in my room. Yes, now I've got a teacher that really cares about my learning. Or yes, now I'm able to school where I feel safe. Those are the things that people give me that yes, it's better. And then you can go and pull the statistics that show that schools are performing at a higher level than they were previously. But, and to go back to a little bit of what Alice was talking about, I'm going to be honest with you, like I still have my own little moral dilemma about if all kids should go to college. My first instinct to it is yes. But the one thing that I don't have a dilemma about is that I think we should be preparing all kids for the opportunity to go to college. And I think we should be giving them an education where they've got that option. And then if they choose not to exercise that option, then that is okay. But I think too often we've got school systems that are failing kids to the point where they can't even make that choice for themselves. And so that's what I think we need to continue to fight for, is to give a quality education where kids are given an option so that they can then go and live their life and be productive adults with a solid K-12 education. As far as a policy, I don't really think that, I think right now our reform environment is set in a place where we are going to continue to move forward and be successful. But as I mentioned before, the one thing that needs to happen, even outside of having policies, is for that community piece, that we're engaging in communities. And when you're going in and thinking about building a school or taking over a school or closing a school, this cannot be a decision that's made in isolation by our policymakers and our legislators and people who are our superintendents. But it really has there has to be, first of all, a process for it. Because that's one thing that we have fallen down on, is that a lot of these things don't have a formal process that can be followed, and then you have to be transparent about that process. And you've got to be engaging people and making sure they're informed. The one thing that I have to say that saddens me about what's happening in New Orleans in education is that there's a lot of misinformation out there and a lot of misconceptions. And I don't think my organization included, and the RSD included, and the state are taking up enough responsibility to make sure that the right information is getting out and that you're hearing from the right people. And that's one thing that we're going to be working on in the future, is to make sure that we're bringing on people in our staff and that we really are understanding how can we advocate for people in the correct way and giving them the tools to be able to advocate for themselves. Because it's really about the communities, and because that's where it's sustainable. Is if you've got a community around you, that community is supportive of it, and that's what we're going to do with that service.
So, with regards to home ownership, I think we all know that one way to eradicate poverty is through home ownership. We all know that home ownership is a way to build wealth. Traditionally in the United States, there are those of us who are unable to get there, to move to home ownership. And the United States has been fighting with this for a number of years. There are many ways to attack this piece. In my humble opinion, and Lord Nightingale's humble opinion, that there may be some ways that we need to explore and look at things a little differently. One way is instead of continuing to recycle these subsidies that when it comes to home ownership, sometimes there are subsidies that are available to bring people into home ownership who were traditionally priced out of home ownership. So instead of continuing to recycle these subsidies, to tie those subsidies to the land so that they remain there for generations to come and for others to be moved into that, in order to have that same opportunity that someone else had. So that it's not just given to this person. When that person moves into the private market, then it's no longer available to them. So, that's one way that we see that we can maybe attack poverty rate.
As we move forward in New Orleans, I think the biggest opportunity to look at is the jobs created from the landscape that it resides within. Being a wetland ecosystem, having water resources, opportunities for jobs from PhD to PhD, looking at green jobs from solar and all of the solar opportunities in the country, with wind, with all of these components. Then you add rising sea levels in a city that is at or below sea level. The expertise that can develop out of New Orleans from this disaster is a very positive one looking forward. That being said, the biggest renewable resource that Louisiana has is its boat, and that is also who everyone else, that's what everyone else can use. If the community chooses to vote for people that put in place policies that do not provide opportunities for the community, then they need to look in the mirror on some level. And the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana has changed that very recently. And I think just the opportunity of its new regime and mayor and some sort of political issues with the state are moving towards that. And they receive that action through vote. And that's very positive.
Okay, I see a hand here. There's a microphone and a hand here. There's a microphone here in the center. If you all can start moving over.
Just wanted to first begin by congratulating what you have done in New Orleans 5 years since Hurricane Katrina. But I want to take the discussion 5 years from now after the BP oil spill. I don't think enough has been looked at with regards to the environment and the long-term effect that it will have on the environment. In addition, moving more towards the east, the ocean currents, the Caribbean seas, it's really, the Gulf Coast is a part of the Caribbean seas. And if anyone has seen fish after they've spawned in pollution, it's not a pretty sight. And so it's something that we need to start paying attention to. 5 years from now or much sooner, I'm a person who, my diet consists of fish, but I'm very, very concerned about the potential long-term impact. You mentioned policies. Policies that exist right now will not find BP liable if in a few years after we do our research, we see that they've damaged the fishing industry for the Caribbean, for the Gulf Coast, the Law of the Sea Convention. They are not liable at all. So it's something that we need to start looking at, doing some research to see the long-term effect on the fish, the long-term effect. I mean, once it washes up into the Caribbean, it's been dispersed, so you can't see it. We'll still have our white sand beaches, but it is still there. And the ocean currents has brought it there. In addition, with the hurricane, and you mentioned the patterns, we're going to have a lot more hurricanes. So we're one world connected, and it is being spread around the place. And some of us have been tracking the migratory patterns of the fish, and I am very concerned for the future. I'm even thinking of stop eating fish.
Can you please just tell us your name? And where
My
you're
name
from?
is Victor Cummings. I'm with the Institute of Caribbean Studies, and in Jamaica I used to be in charge of the fishing industry. So I've been spending a lot of time very,
Yeah,
Thank you
well,
for your.
When I refer to policies, that includes the Air Pollution Act and the Stanford Act. And of course, you know, under the Air Pollution Act, you know, PP, it's a lot there that we didn't know about, so, but then there's so much, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to get into the legalities of this, but I have been talking to Congress about this. You know, Congresswoman Waters has done a tremendous job down there with me, working with us, New Orleans, throughout Katrina and through this, and also Sheila Jackson Lee, who also came to the forefront. And we've discussed those matters, and that's why I say policy is things. And when I say policy, it goes, it's wide range. Now, on far as the seafood and the quality of it, that's why I've been on the forefront, actually, for the scientific data. We need that release. No one is going to feel comfortable eating this seafood until the scientists come forward with the information. We want to know about the carcinogens in it. We want to know about the oxygen levels in this water. Just 2 days ago, we had another large fish kill off of Venice, which is right below my home. We had one in St. Bernard, which is right above my home. So, you know, we know there's low oxygen areas out there that's going to create these fish, of course, die. The problem with the one that's scaring us now in Venice is just not fish. They're finding dead shrimps, crabs, I mean, everything. So I know nobody wants to hear this because everybody wants to promote it. But we do have some areas in Louisiana that hasn't been affected or to that point, and it's safe. So they're getting seafood out of those areas. But the fishermen are not going to go in those areas when they know they're infected. And I know there seems to be a campaign to try and push more areas to open or push the fishermen in certain areas. They're not going to go. So, you know, I can almost tell you, don't even worry about it unless somebody's doing it wrongfully. But no, those carcinogens, those chemicals, those science reports have to be released. We don't want to happen what happened in Alaska. Alaska is still struggling with the situation where the court records are still tied up and won't be released till 2013. So you can imagine how many people will be dead and got cancer by 2013. It's been 20 years already. Some of these people just selling claims with value, you know, so, you know, we need to, and that's why policies could change that. Policies could address their own issue.
One of the other components to that is that we have, a lot of folks have lost sight that our interior wetlands in Louisiana have been decimated, not by oil spills per se, but by saltwater intrusion due to oil rigs. And so the focus on coastal wetland remediation and the BP oil spill is so sensitive because the wetlands are the protected offensive line in the state of Louisiana. And over the last 20 to 30 years, 31,000 acres of central wetlands unit are now sterile ecosystems that, frankly, are the urban coast of most of New Orleans. And so it's even that much more important to deal with this aggressively so that there can be some protective aspect of the wetland ecosystem along the coast.
Your concern is critically important. I've made 2 trips to Prince William Sound, the east side of the Exxon Valley East, since 1989 when it happened. And you are correct, we are still having problems now. My biggest fear is that the concern over the impact on aquatic life, the impact on birds, will somewhat go away once the $20 billion in claims are paid out. And people figure, well, the claims are paid out, now we're done with it. Louisiana is the heart of the central flyway of migratory birds coming out of Alaska, out of eastern Alaska and Canada. And it's a pattern. They stop at the birds fly south. They stop in Louisiana. They get that last good meal in fresh water before they fly across the Gulf of Mexico. That pattern is now broken because of the contamination of that habitat. And now you're going to see impacts for years and years to come. But that has economic implications. Louisiana is known as a sportsman's paradise. People come from all over the country to hunt in Louisiana. I'm a Congressman Benny Thompson from Mississippi. We hunt together on the coast of Louisiana. Well, guess what? Because of climate change and the warm temperatures, the birds aren't flying south anymore like they used to. Why fly south if it's still warm in Canada? So therefore, the birds are not coming. Then you add to that fact the contamination. The birds don't come, the hunters don't come, they don't bring their money, they don't rent hotels, they don't buy Budweiser, and Louisiana loses billions of dollars. Now you add to that the impacts of the oil spill, it's catastrophic economic problems for years and years to come and generations to come. Your concern is very, very real.
Okay, so I know I'm right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Nainaji Jackson. I'm a professor. I teach political science and public policy at Howard University. I was the only professor who came to New Orleans after Katrina with our students for alternative spring break right after Katrina. I, along with probably many other Americans, I am committed to come at least for 1 week every year to help do Katrina recovery. For some reason, am divinely committed to help rebuild New Orleans. But I believe that college students from America, all over America, did more to help rebuild New Orleans certainly than FEMA and then the U.S. government did. And I think that the city would do well to continue to utilize the energy of college students. I have two questions and comments. One is on the issue of the lower Ninth Ward and self-sustainability. Nothing that I could see on a large scale is manufactured in the lower Ninth Ward. The one thing that is exported to the world from the lower Ninth Ward is culture. I don't think that enough of it is exported from the lower Ninth Ward, however, and that it doesn't benefit economically enough from the culture that is generated there. It's a beautiful, wonderful culture. I think that the president instructed every United States agency to do its part to partner with HBCUs, right? So I think that there could be a White House initiative to partner with HBCUs to create, if nothing else, every business school at HBCUs to go into the lower Ninth Ward to try to help to create self-sustainability, to create businesses there, if nothing else, incubators in the lower Ninth Ward. And I know you understand because you're with the Urban League. So that the lower Ninth Ward can become a place that becomes self-sustaining. It's just frustrating to me that it's a small radius and everybody in the country is doing what they can, all from Hollywood to New York, to do something with the lower Ninth, but yet it's not self-sustaining. That's number one. We can come back to it because I'm going to sit down after I make my two comments. That in and of itself, 5 years later, it's still not manufacturing, it's still not self-sustaining. And I'm not a business person, I'm an educator. That's number one. Number two, funding education in the lower Ninth Ward. I was part of the group of Howard students who demanded that the Martin Luther King School be reopened. They would not allow us to even go in and clean it up. So we brought media, along with other community organizations, and acted a fool until somebody came and unlocked it so we could dredge out the mud and clean up the place. And we did that in a couple of places. In 1 week, one group of students did that. And other students were doing other heroic things like that in the lower Ninth Ward over a period of a year or two. So I think that the Ninth Ward could reach out to other universities, especially HBCUs, and get some other work done. But my point is that if there is no stream of revenue flowing from real property into education in the lower Ninth Ward and other places in New Orleans. Stop looking for that stream of revenue to come from real property like it does in other places in the country. Look to other streams of revenue. Duh, it's not coming from there. People drink in New Orleans like it's water. They drink alcohol like it's water. We all know that. So start taxing liquor for education. Start taxing restaurants. And I know that restaurants are having a hard time, but people go there to eat. Look at the obvious streams of revenue for education. And maybe, you know, I might sound like a crazy person, but you got people with alcohol problems. We know the problems. If they're creating alcohol problems and health, and it's a drain on health care, then make that problem pay for itself. Tax alcohol to pay for health care and education. I'm just making a suggestion. That's my comment. Thank you.
Well, to the first issue with regards to the volunteers, one, we thank you for coming to New Orleans to help us, because a lot of that volunteer labor was leveraged to help our residents get back into their homes. So we thank everyone who came to help. Two, we are looking for ways to self-sustain ourselves and to sustain ourselves in the lower nine. And that's when I alluded to the land and being stewards of that land. That's one of the ways that we are doing that. We're trying to make the land in the lower nine, some areas in the lower nine, community land, where we can get businesses to come into the lower nine. I mean, right now in the lower nine ward, we do not have a grocery store. Now, prior to Hurricane Katrina, we didn't have a grocery store either. But now, the lower nine ward probably cannot sustain a Walmart on its own, but we can come up with another model that we can work in the lower nine, where we have a grocery store that's smaller, that can support the lower nine, that has fresh fruits and fresh meats and maybe some specialty items that the lower nine can support. And we can put that on land that these small business owners can open their businesses in, and it's not at such a high cost as if they were to locate their business somewhere else in New Orleans. So we are thinking creatively to come up with ways that we in the lower nine can live, work, and play like we were doing prior to Hurricane Katrina, but better.
We might recycle those black dollars. We don't want them to go to Walmart.
Right. And the model that we're coming up with is not a Walmart. We're not asking for a Walmart. We're looking for the residents in the lower nine to, I mean, because we have, in New Orleans, that's how our community is. We have the corner grocery stores. We've been doing this for a number of years. We, not as to a large scale as we could or should, but we're going back to that model and recreating that model so that it does work and that we are recycling those dollars in our community.
And I will add that I think this presents just a wonderful opportunity for everyone in Louisiana if we take it seriously, because, you know, right after the storm, one of the dominant narratives in the media was maybe this is an opportunity just to reset, to really begin anew. I would frame it and say that I think an opportunity to innovate and to look at farmers markets and to look at ways that we can cultivate, value our culture and cultivate creativity to meet our needs. So thank you for that observation. And two, your policy observations, I think I made notes myself just in terms of, but as you look at this piece, and we haven't even talked about it fully, looking at the political realities and how do we build political will, how do we educate community to move in the ways that we need to move, to surface some of the ideas that you put forth, and not just surface them, but get them passed to some degree. I know there's a gentleman back here, and we're getting close to wrap up time, so I know these two hands back here, these 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Okay, and so please go ahead. Do you want to make a comment quickly?
Just a
yes.
comment. I just want to talk about that self-sustainable First of all, I need you guys to know that there has been definitely a bait and switch. The Lower Ninth Ward has been used as the poster child for Katrina. However, many of the funds that came down never made it to the Lower Ninth Ward. We want to make that make you all very, very aware of that. Also, there has been a diversion of funding, everything from education to housing, you name it. Monies that were supposed to come down to the Lower Ninth Ward never have. The reason why Martin Luther King School, which was visited by 2 presidents, is open was because of civil disobedience, as the lady said. The other thing was, we have been trying to get a school in the Lower Ninth Ward. We were lied to by Superintendent Vallis of the Recovery School District and told that we would get a high school. In the first phase, we are not listed. We were not listed in the first phase, okay? And we have kids that are on a waiting list, kids that are waiting to go to Martin Luther King, which is a charter school. It's a citywide access school, which means kids come from all over the city to that school. Our kids who live across the street can't get in school. That is a problem. And we, who the money from FEMA was sent to, okay, because of the flooded schools, money has been diverted to schools in New Orleans, where there apparently has been, I guess you could say, more influence. And so those schools who only had minor damage, they're getting lots of money. If you looked at the NFL, you saw a quarterback, Drew Brees, talk about this field that they were building, and they showed the Lower Ninth Ward. That field is not being built in the Lower Ninth Ward, so that's what I'm trying to say. It's a lot of things that are put there. You may think that it's going someplace, but it's absolutely not. It's going to a more fluid area where kids who, with the wherewithal, were going to get it anyway. But the Lower Ninth Ward did not benefit from that money, I assure you. The other thing is, when you talk about money, we did vote. The only reason why many of the people in Louisiana voted for gaming was because that money was supposed to be obligated to education. Once the money got there, our lawmakers changed it. That's the reason why we're having such problems right now, because that money that was obligated is not totally being used for education.
Okay, as the moderator, I'm going to jump in and say that due to time, we're going to have very tight questions that end with a question mark. And then we're just going to have one of our distinguished panelists respond to the question. So please.
Okay. First of all, this Greenway Ninth Ward, that's turning into a big green project. There are enough investment dollars in the economy here from investment bankers who would thrive to jump on a huge project to implement a green investment initiative in the Ninth Ward that would create jobs for everybody in the Ninth Ward. That is certainly a way to make things happen, for sure. But I wanted to talk about I'm going to ask a question about that. Has there been any discussion in terms of having a green vocational school?
Well, my understanding is that the neighborhood has taken it upon themselves, because there's no high school in the Lower Ninth Ward, to develop plans for a LEED Platinum or living building high school that also includes a trade school or a vocational school. But that is, as I understand it, completely grassroots, because the neighborhood is somewhat fed up with a non-existent school in their neighborhood.
Well, what I'm suggesting is a conversation to have a green vocational school in the Ninth Ward that would create jobs for individuals who may not be candidates for college, but certainly candidates going to different crafts. Moreover, that would be an avenue to bring in developers, bring in green finance folks, bring in everybody who's involved in renewable energy. We can do that. We pass up on all these opportunities. They're here. We can do that. The money is available. Developers, investment guys are looking for projects. Banks aren't lending any money, by the way, guys. Banks aren't lending any money. The deals are done using investment dollars. They're looking for projects. They're looking for medical projects. They're looking for medical facilities. There's a lot of money that's came down from the Obama administration for medical facilities. Medical developers are looking for them. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Now I see people starting to line up outside. I think there may be, I'm not sure, Marjorie, if there's another group coming in afterwards, but we will, okay, we're good, very good. So let's hear from our sister from New Orleans with Total Community Action. Please join in.
I'm Thelma French, and thank you, Ethan, for addressing who I am.
Yes.
But prior to being the president and CEO of Total Community Action, I've had a life of public service. And I sat on and chaired the community engagement in the public school master plan. So I want to address public engagement in New Orleans, which is my question. But first, I got to say to Brian, because I must sit on every advocacy, anything that gives a voice to the people. And I am a member of the coalition that is supporting the fishermen in Plaquemine Parish. So I don't speak from somewhere that I'm not. I mean, everybody's meeting. But my concern is, when we have those opportunities, like the coalition, like Open, I don't see your voices. So my question is, can you, and I heard the young lady from Save Our Schools, or not Save Our Schools, I'm sorry,
New Schools for New Orleans.
I know which one. I know New Schools know said that she needs to get into community engagement. And I'm here to ask and invite you. We just had a poverty summit launch to develop the comprehensive plan to move the people in New Orleans out of poverty, and you weren't there. So I'm here to stand and make a personal invitation that we meet regularly. Brian's group meets every Monday evening. Don't let me have to come to Washington to invite you to come home. And sir, I gotta go there. On Green Jobs, Dillard University, the Alliance for Green Corps, Total Community Action, we've all joined together to train those who are unemployed, those who are drop out in green jobs. But I haven't seen those industries come. We are doing weatherization, we're doing commercial green, but I just came from a green conference. Please tell me what a green jobs are, because I'll be up there doing next. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but Ms. French, once this panel's over, I would love to talk to you. I think you brought up a very great point, and we want to be at those tables also have those conversations. And I'll make a commitment to you today that we will be there.
Okay, please.
All right.